Well, it seems like clocks are everywhere these days in our houses, cars, even billboards. And thanks to the efforts of one organization, the citizens of Winona Lake now have a clock of a different sort. It's called a National Debt Clock. Members of the Young Americans for Liberty organization at Grace College organized this clock to show citizens of Winona Lake the current national debt. They say it's important for people to know this number now because debt has increased more in the last 10 years than it did during the first 200 years of our country's existence.
Every generation should pay as it goes, and we've seen a lot of people being irresponsible and not following his advice. The problem with that is if you just kick the can down the road and allow the debt to pass on to future generations, eventually it would all come collapsing down, and one generation, and we believe that'll be us, is going to have to pay ultimately.
As it stands, the current national debt is just over $14 trillion.
Now, I was born in 1960. I'll be 60 years old by 2020. I'd like to have, nice golden years to play shuffleboard and complain about the government and wear pants up my, under. I'd like that. But you know what? If I don't get that, well, I can deal with that. Because you know what? I'm 50 now. I got to enjoy a good half century of relative sanity. Okay? You guys, what? You guys are all in probably your early 20s. Don't you want to get married, raise a family, all that normal stuff? If we don't change, and change radically, that's not gonna happen. See, federal spending comes out in two categories. Wasteful and inefficient. No, just kidding. Think about it. You've heard those commercials where the guy's supposed to go to the doctor and it's not. Well, it's just like, is that an alligator that's got a hold of your leg? Yeah, I probably ought to do something about that someday. I can still get around. Well, what do you know? I was too busy to do that right now. Okay, Fred, is that a sunflower growing out of your head? Well, yeah, it is, but I've been really busy. I'll get to that someday. When you ignore the obvious and you pretend by looking at something inconsequential and insignificant that you're actually making real progress, what are you doing? Aren't you lying to yourself? But you see, that is what we are as a nation right now when you look at the debt problem. We're deceiving ourselves. We are not paying attention to obvious problems, and we're instead focusing on minor problems. We're convincing ourselves that by doing that, we're doing something good. But here's the deal. You can learn to discipline your body and its urges. I see, I want, I must have. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. Follow me. Say, okay, I see, I want, but I'm not going to have. See, when Social Security had more money coming in than what was going out, what did they do with that extra money? See, because back then, they weren't keen on buying General Motors or Chrysler. Okay, because you see, when the government owns all the corporations, what do we call that? Socialism, I think. So you see, the federal government said, we got all this money over here in Social Security side. Because all this money's coming in, very little's going. What are we going to do with it? They bought federal government debt. So the Social Security Trust Fund was always full of federal government debt. The Social Security side was what? Loaning money to the operating side. So any distinction between those two has always been a false distinction. Matthew 25:14-30, Jesus said, in the kingdom of heaven is like master going away on a journey. To some he gave a bag of gold, another 2, another 5, each depending on his abilities. And the master comes back, what did you do? And when the disciples asked Jesus, teach us how to pray, Lemler paraphrased the Lord's Prayer. Dear Father God, your kingdom come, your will be done right here, right now on earth, just as it currently is in heaven. You see, however things may play out, our orders are to do what? Subdue and have dominion over God's creation. Work and keep God's garden. How? Consistent with his wishes and his desires.